Hello, and welcome to part 2 on the lecture series, The Age of Enlightenment, here at Learning the Social Sciences. Jean-Jacques Rousseau was a writer and philosopher. He also came up with the concept of the general will. Only those who make their own laws are free. He believed in the virtuous citizen and that people coming together will agree and become one in unity. However, he does have a pessimistic view. He did also state in the social contract, man is born free, yet everywhere he is in chains. Jean-Jacques Rousseau was born and raised in Geneva until his father had a little run-in and some legal problems and then moved to Paris, where Rousseau then was suddenly around all of the salons and the glamour and lavish lifestyles that were going on during this time period in Paris. He's also somebody who one day found out about a writing contest and decided to join. And from there, he went off into writing a lot about ethics, morality, and of course, philosophy for the time period and jumping into political science. Now, he rejected the extreme individualism and stressed the role of the individual as a member of society. He saw government as something that was needed. It's a necessary evil because it does restrict individual freedom, but it prevents from chaos from happening all over the streets. Now, he is somebody who went out and kind of promoted that children should actually have like a childhood because they're born basically good, which is going against kind of like the opinions from beforehand that maybe children were maybe evil or that they were just blank slates. Like John Locke said, no, he was kind of like kids are good. And so let's have them have a childhood. However, in terms of women, he saw that women's role in society is to raise kids, take care of their home, and please their husband. So he did not agree with the idea of women participating in the new public sphere, and he thought that elite women should abandon their salons. So he is somebody who goes out and does a lot in terms of philosophy and does a lot in terms of these political discussions of the era. But he is not very much in for equal right of the sexes. Jumping over to Prussia, we have the German philosopher Immanuel Kant. Now, he separated science and morality into two separate branches of knowledge. Science can go and describe nature, and let morality be its own entire branch, because we can't use science to then be the guide for morality. He came up with the concept of the categorical imperative, which was an intuitive instinct that we all have as it was placed by God in human consciousness. In other words, we all have a moral compass, and that morals go and guide one's actions. And he also stated that morality is the same for everyone, which if you go off and major, say in philosophy or other things, and you go and really discuss really in depth about morality, you can go into that question, are there moral truths? Moving on, we've got Montesquieu, who wrote The Spirit of Laws in 1748. He, with that book, went and created the concept of the three branches of government, which we see today in the United States with the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. He concluded that no single set of political laws could be applied to all people at all times and in all places. You can't just copy and paste one government system that is successful somewhere and assume it's going to be somewhere or successful somewhere else. The best government for a country depends on the size of the country, their population, their history, their social and religious customs, what is going on with their economy, and kind of the traditions and climate of the area. So he believed in the separation of powers so that one part of the government could not be completely in control of everything, and that, a country would be stronger by having the safety nets in place to ensure that the voices are being heard. We have another person, Beccaria, who comes out and writes on crimes and punishment, which basically he's speaking out against torture and capital punishment. Also, he's wanting to have speedy trials because unfortunately, we have some people during this time period who spend an awfully long time in jail and never have a trial. So they should have a trial. And also, he stated that the purpose of punishment should be to deter further crimes, but not to the level that you are going to go and torture somebody. So for him, he sees that the purpose of laws is to guarantee happiness for as many human beings as possible. Now, jumping into a little bit of economics with a dash of morality, we have Adam Smith, who goes and writes The Wealth of Nations in 1776. Now, surprisingly, when we have Locke, Rousseau, Voltaire, and all of these other writers, the work that is probably leaving the longest legacy from the Enlightenment and is the most famous is The Wealth of Nations because it creates capitalism and laissez-faire economics. Now, Adam Smith, before that, had written a book, a long, lengthy book on morality, and he takes some of that and puts that into his economic theory. He was looking at mercantilism for the era, the Dutch East India Company and the British East India Company, saying these things don't work. And he was actually saying that the American Revolution was probably going to happen. He's like 1 year too late because, by the time it's published, everything's in motion for the revolution to begin. But he's saying, what I'm seeing from the British East India Company is that we're going to have a whole bunch of colonists getting very frustrated because of the trade network, because of these navigation acts that are not allowing for free trade to happen. And they're probably going to break off because of this. And he's totally right, 100% right. So he's promoting a system with less government intervention or no government intervention. And to ensure safety, he sees this invisible hand as something that will be operating. And if there is something that is going on that is wrong, then the people are going to kind of quash whatever that wrong is. Now, he knows that there is selfishness. He knows that there is corruption. He's not ignorant to any of that, and he does address it. And he also does address the fact that some people like to just kind of hoard onto a lot of money. And so he says, hey, for the wealthy that are hoarding onto a lot of money, give them awards and accolades for giving away some of their money, and then they'll give away more. It's like the concept that if you look at the Medicis from the Renaissance era in Florence, they gave away a lot of money for the arts. They were patrons of so much, but when they continued to give away money, they kept climbing the ranks of politics and society higher and higher. So he's like, use that for the wealthy. And when we start seeing some problems within the system, have that invisible hand go and operate to be able to help the economy continue to thrive. He also went and said things like, hey, don't go and make for yourself what is going to be more expensive that you could go kind of buy. Now, of course, he's not talking about the fact if you just love to bake, like you're a stress baker and, after a long day, you just need to sit down and make a cheesecake. No, you don't have to go buy a cheesecake because it's cheaper at the store. You can go bake your cheesecake. But if you're somebody that's, like making your own clothing, and you don't like making your own clothing and it's more expensive, then go buy clothing somewhere else. That we are all working together to help each other bring down costs and to help each other survive. The baker's really good at baking and the shoemaker's really good at making shoes. So let us all go and do the trades that we want to do. And we're going to go and help each other out to survive. So there's a lot more to Adam Smith, but that's at least what we're going to cover here in this lecture. We also have the encyclopedia getting published during this time. Now, of course, we have hundreds of people writing the encyclopedia. However, it is put together and edited by Denis Diderot and Jean Lirand de Lambert. Now, with that, they go and get all of these authors to write on various topics. However, with some of their topics, well, they're kind of controversial and, well, maybe a little bit biased. This is something where you could really have a great historiography lesson by going and reading some of these old texts from the original encyclopedia and then seeing how maybe one might cover that topic today. However, the book is going to be banned in France as the church and the government did not like or appreciate some of that bias and point of view that these articles were written from, especially the article on the Virgin Mary. They were very, very unhappy about this because the writers who went and wrote in the encyclopedia, they wrote against, in a way, these absolute monarchs that were not enlightened. They wrote against certain things that they saw as wrong within society. And so with that, obviously, it's going to cause some controversy. Now, though, a voice that is not largely heard in the encyclopedia is the voice of women. And this is something that Mary Wollstonecraft will point out. And she'll also point out during the French Revolution, hello, you wrote the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen. What about women? So Mary Wollstonecraft goes after that was published and put into law in France, wrote a vindication of the rights of women in 1792, basically defending equality for women, that they are equal with men based off of reason. So they can both achieve, the same thing through thought. We don't need to be separated here. However, her thoughts at the time period are not going to be resonating very far. It will actually be later on, more than 100 years later, that really her work is going to take off, like, for example, among the suffragettes. So this has been episode 2 on our lecture series on the Enlightenment. If you have any questions or concerns, please leave them down below, and always remember to like and subscribe. Bye-bye.